Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this virtual Forum on Food Waste 2023 hosted by the EPA. My name is Suzanne Campbell. I'm a food and farming journalist, and I'll be chairing proceedings today. And thank you so much for tuning in. We're here in a Dublin studio, so we've quite a lot of interactivity designed in the programme today, and I'll explain that more in a minute. So we've three fantastic sessions, and the first one is called Working Together Against Food Waste, including the Food Waste Charter, a very important document that was brought out just in June of this year. And that's the first session. We'll be wrapping that up at about 10:45. And after a short break, we have session 2, and that covers Pledge, Measure, Reduce, Report. Very important aspect of changing our practices on food waste, and that will continue till about midday. And session 3 starts just after that, which will cover reporting on implementation. So that will wrap up no later than 1 p.m. So it's just a morning event. If you need to leave the stream early, you can always catch it up later online, and we'll talk about that later. It's a really packed agenda to get through, but one thing we really want to encourage is interaction from everybody watching at home. And if you look on your device, you'll see me in the main screen, but up on the right, there's 2 tabs. There's a Slido tab where we will see polls, and it says polls at the top of it. And I'll be using that throughout the session to canvass people's opinions and use those answers in our panel discussion. And there's also a Q&A tab for questions. So you can put in questions or view questions that other users and people have put in, and you can give them the thumbs up signal, and they will come direct in here into the studio, and we can discuss those with our brilliant panelists and in our discussions later on. So let's get started, and we're going to hear first in today's forum from David Flynn, Director of the Environmental Protection Agency.
Good morning and welcome to the Environmental Protection Agency's Forum on Food Waste. Today's event is brought to you by the EPA's Circular Economy Programme. This event brings together people from all sectors who have an interest in solutions for food waste. Why is food waste and food loss important? Because 1/3 of all the food produced for human consumption is wasted. Wasted food needlessly generates up to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Production of wasted food may have caused unnecessary pressure on water quality and on biodiversity. Food waste matters because avoiding food waste is a large step that food producers and businesses can take towards achieving sustainability. And food waste matters because solving it is a win-win. We can avoid emissions by doing something about it without any large negative impacts on quality of life, on food availability, on employment, or on business profitability. Ireland has committed to reducing food waste in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 12.3, that by 2030 we will have halved the per capita global food waste at retail and consumer levels and reduce food losses along production and supply chains, including post-harvest losses. Ireland produces about 750,000 tonnes of food waste. Proposed EU targets would require approximately 150,000 tonnes of food waste to be prevented in less than 7 years' time. EPA data shows that the majority of food waste, that's 71%, was generated across the food supply chain, and only 29% was generated within households itself in 2021. The theme of this year's event, Countdown to 2030, Together Against Food Waste, reflects the importance of sectors collaborating across an increasingly complex and integrated supply chain. The government's first food waste prevention roadmap was published last November and focuses on 9 topic areas up to 2025. As part of this roadmap, the EPA has recently launched a new and revised food waste charter. The newly revised charter, launched last June, has been expanded to include businesses along the whole supply chain. The charter is a voluntary agreement which provides a framework for your business to demonstrate your commitment to tackling food waste by measuring, reducing, and reporting on food waste. By signing up to this charter, you will be joining major names in the industry, and you will be recognising that your business can help deal with Ireland's food waste problem and can help reduce avoidable impacts causing climate change, impacts on biodiversity and water quality. In terms of the government and its state agencies, they're supporting businesses on this journey. Joining us today at the forum are Board Bia, Odile Vara, Enterprise Ireland, and Fáilte Ireland and Teagasc. In the forum's opening session, each of these agencies will share information on how they are embedding the Charter and food waste prevention activities within their own initiatives and programmes. In today's second session, 3 Charter members, O'Brien's, Fine Foods, Aritza, and Tesco, will share their practical experience of measuring food loss and food waste and how they go about setting targets and taking action to reduce food waste. In our final session of the forum, we focus on implementation. Ingrid de Dunker from Future Planet will provide insights into how food waste reporting fits into the requirements of the new Corporate Sustainability Responsibility Directive. Ciara Stein from the Finnish Ministry of Environment will share Finland's experience of inducing mandatory reporting on food waste. And to close the final session, we'll have Brian Quirk from the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications, who will give us an update on the implementation of the roadmap since it was launched last November. Food is precious. Producing food takes valuable resources, and there are impacts on our environment from putting food on our tables. When food is wasted, these resources are wasted, and we put avoidable burden on our planet. Your business can now show customers a commitment to taking food waste seriously by signing up to the Food Waste Charter. Membership of the Charter is also open to industry representative bodies and groups. I'll finish this today by just saying thank you for joining us. To all our expert speakers and panelists for giving up their time today. I encourage you to contribute to the discussions throughout the morning and enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, David. Hello, everybody. My name is Odile Bolloch, and I lead the food waste prevention team in the EPA. And the EPA has a statutory role in leading the National Food Waste Prevention Programme. And today I'm just going to give you an update on some of the work we've been doing since our last forum, which was in November 2021. So, yeah, I suppose just to set the scene, David already mentioned, you know, in 2021, Ireland produced about 750,000 tonnes of food waste. I suppose it's worth mentioning that since 2020, the EPA have to produce waste statistics on food waste. And it's quite unusual. For the first time, we've also got to split it into the different sectors as well. So I suppose what we're finding is it's an interesting exercise trying to do this, and our key here is that the data has to improve with time. What we do need is a lot more consistency and accuracy in the data, not only at national level, but also at a business level as well. What is really important from this to remember, as David mentioned, is that, it's in the business sector where the majority of food waste is arising, and it really does reflect the urgency that we do need to take some action here. Just as a recap, most of you are probably already familiar with the policy background, but reducing food waste is included in many national policies and targets. We obviously did sign the Sustainable Development Goal in 2015, which we have that by 2030 have per capita. But we've also got a 50% reduction of food waste in National Climate Action Plan. It's also in the Food Vision 2030, and it's also embedded in the Circular Economy Programme as well. So food is a priority stream that we look at there. Under the Waste Framework Directive, the European Commission are also proposing some binding targets, so to meet by 2030. And I suppose where they're coming from there is they're proposing 30% per capita in retail, hospitality and households, and a 10% reduction in the processing and manufacturing sector. So I think, what all of this policy does reflect is that reducing food waste is a priority at not only national level, but also at international level. And what was very welcome is the government published a national roadmap in November 2022. And this is we'll hear more about this later, but I suppose it's just to kind of point out that this was a very important move to bring all kind of everything under one umbrella and ensure that all the work that is being done about food waste has been captured. But also a really important aspect of that roadmap will be the monitoring of the progress as well. And this is something that we'll be talking about a bit later. The Department of the Environment, Climate and Communications are the lead for the implementation of that roadmap. There's many actions in there that are allocated to different actors in the whole area. But I think what was quite significant with the roadmap is that the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine also launched the roadmap together. And I think it's a real good example of government departments coming together for a topic that's of common concern. Just as a reminder, I'm sure most of you are familiar with this too, but you have the food use hierarchy. Obviously, food waste is a significant contributor to climate change, and this is sort of the order of preference for using food waste. And I suppose the one thing I just really wanted to highlight here is that if we are to reduce food waste at the scale that's required to meet our targets by 2030, we must be working up in the green area. It has to be in the prevention and reuse area. We cannot be focused on, what are currently waste management options. And I think, what we have to think about here is in terms of the scale that's required. Prevention can be quite difficult to do. And to drive that scale is really important. So just to highlight a little bit about our national prevention programme, we implemented through the Circular Economy programme. We have 3 strands to the work that we do. We obviously, what we're here to talk about today, supply chain and hospitality through the Food Waste Charter. We also have a very strong evidence and insights to underpin the work that we do on food waste. And then we've also got our stopfoodwaste.ie campaign, which is targeting food waste in households. But what we're here to talk about today is our strategy working on food waste in business. And what we're focused on here is that food waste in business is quantified and that we develop sectoral benchmarks and indicators to understand a bit more about where we should be in the grand scheme of things. And what we're also trying to drive is an increased commitment from businesses to reduce food waste as well. So as David mentioned, we launched the Food Waste Charter in June. We revised the Charter. We had the Charter back in 2017 to work with the grocery retail sector. And as with that Charter, measurement is at the heart of it. So I think for us it's really important. I've mentioned, data and evidence underpinning the work that we do, and the importance of the national figures as well, and really to drive the changes at scale, measurement and taking action, target-based action, based on the findings from that measurement is crucial for us to achieve any kind of impact at all. So anyone who does sign the Charter is required to monitor and track food waste by measuring it, and then also identify and take at least one target-based action to reduce food waste. And then a key part of this as well is the reporting annually to the EPA. We will have to pull together an annual report on the progress of the Charter, and that will help us understand whether the voluntary approach is working. Very importantly, as was mentioned a few times already today, obviously we have responsibility as the lead delivery body for the Food Waste Charter, but we can't do this alone, and this is really important that we get stakeholders and other actors and all food businesses to join and take part in this as well. And to that end, we're very welcome that a number of state agencies signed the Charter when we launched it back in June. And really what's really important there is it's integral to the success of the Charter that these state agencies have agreed to look at, embedding food waste in their programmes and activities, looking at their initiatives and, things that they are doing, working with food sector businesses and embedding food waste prevention, food waste measurement and the Food Waste Charter into those activities. They'll also help get more businesses involved. Obviously, as I said, they're out dealing with food sector businesses all the time, urging them to sign the Food Waste Charter, recognising the importance of it. And then also opportunities where, there's training and other types of supports being developed for businesses, that the Charter and food waste measurement is included in there as well. And yet again, these activities are going to be reported to us annually so that we can keep track of all of this and make sure that everything is being captured together so that we can input to the roadmap to show how it's being implemented. In terms of current members, after we launched the Charter in June, we have 23 members that have signed up, food sector businesses that have signed up to the Charter. Obviously, we're delighted to have those members sign up, but there's plenty more businesses out there that could be signing up. So we'd urge other businesses to sign up to take the plunge, join these champion businesses that have already put their head above the parapet. I think, obviously we would welcome the state agencies who'll be doing the same, encouraging their client businesses to sign up. And yet again, what's really important for us is we'll be capturing the activities, but also the amount of food waste and reductions of food waste by Charter members, which will be part of what we're doing as our reporting under the Charter. So why is the Charter focused on measurement? As I mentioned, we need that consistent approach to measurement. We need to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. And also from a country point of view, we need to make sure that the data is the best it can be if decisions are going to be made around it. What we also need is more information, improved granularity, to get right down from a business level. They, understand where food waste is originating, what it is, and what you can do about it. So in order to drive that improvement in data quality, we've developed a standard measurement protocol for the food and drink sector. And the methodology also includes workbooks for businesses to use so that they can gather and collate relevant data, and in fact, data that most of them probably already have. It's designed to get you as a food sector business to look at all the flows in your business, so that your things maybe, that you haven't thought about, that you haven't looked at. And the idea is to look at it in a systematic way so that you review the data you have, maybe, see if you can improve that data, but also look for more data to help give you the bigger picture that you have in your business. And this can help in terms of informing decisions around setting targets for reduction and actions that you can take to reduce food waste as well. And then we've also a simplified version of the protocol designed for the food and hospitality sector. It's called the Pathway. And this is actually based on, really simple, it's bin waste. So from your waste contractor that you plug in if you're in a hospitality sector. And it'll help you plug in the data, it'll give you kind of the amount of food waste that's being wasted and a bit more information about it. And in fact, we've trialed this pathway with businesses in the sector, and already 7 businesses that tested it identified potentially €70,000 worth of savings just by doing this exercise of plugging data into a spreadsheet. So, as I said, underpinning our work to help us understand where we direct our effort, we also need that evidence and insights to help improve our understanding. And we rolled out the methodology in a number of the smaller business sectors to begin with. So we looked at bakery, we looked at seafood and prepared foods, and we've developed guidance for those sectors as well. And we've also rolled out the methodology in the brewing and distilling sector, and we're just starting projects looking at the 2 biggest sectors. We say the biggest to last, meat and dairy. And meat will include beef, poultry and sheep. And we know dairy will probably be a bit more complex because there's a lot more liquid waste and sludges. So this is all part of our, I suppose, making sure that the methodology is appropriate to be used, and also then pulling together some of the common actions that these businesses can take. So for the bakery sector, we have an action checklist. So if you're in the bakery sector and you're thinking about doing this, have a look at the guidance, it'll get you started. And then as well as continuing our work with the Charter, is increasing members, which is the ultimate goal here. We'll also have a look and see if there is a need for certain working groups where you bring people together maybe from a sector or cross-sectoral, because sometimes there can be issues that are cross-sectoral rather than in a particular sector. We've a good example of that where we did work with the grocery retailers, and there's a lot of learnings just from people getting together and kind of identifying some common issues. So that's definitely something that we'll be having a look at as well. In terms of other research and insight that might be of interest to you, this year we also published results from our National Municipal Waste Characterisation. This looks at the types and quantities of waste in Ireland's commercial and our household curbside bins. There's a huge amount of data that's available if you want to go and find it on the EPA website, but I wanted to just highlight while I have you here today that there's still significant amounts of food waste in both the general bin and the recycling bin. So it's something that's to be really important, not to be overlooked when you're measuring your food waste, but also when identifying actions to get it out of those bins. And the general waste bin, 27% of it is still food waste. And even in the recycling bin, there's 7% food waste, which is obviously an issue. It's contaminating all that stuff that then can't go for recycling. Also like to use the opportunity today just to mention to you, I mentioned our stopfoodwaste.ie, which is our consumer-facing campaign, and that focuses on awareness raising and behaviour change. And through our social media, we, Instagram, we issue easy tips and actions just as reminders to people, because none of it is particularly difficult. It's just that we don't do it, we don't remember to do it. So the whole purpose of it is just these timely reminders. But what I wanted to really highlight is the 1st of March is National Stop Food Waste Day every year. And as well as focusing on consumers, it's also an opportunity for businesses in the food sector to highlight the work that they're doing as well, just to show that we're all taking action here. It's not one particular sector that's doing all the work. So joining the Charter, it makes business sense as well. And obviously from our perspective, building capacity for that consistent measurement, as I mentioned, will help improve the data quality. But it's also really from a business point of view, the very basic saving money and reducing waste bills. But it can also help with your ESG commitments. There's that amount of accountability where you do need to be able to tell people, we say we're doing some good things, here's the data that shows it. And it addresses that customer demand for sustainable food sources and reduced carbon impacts as well. Obviously, by doing an exercise where you're measuring all your process flows, you can identify potentially preventable waste. So whether it's through opportunities for valorisation of something that's currently being managed as food waste, you have potential there for co-products or byproducts. And it's also things maybe of using and moving certain outputs that are currently lower down in that food use hierarchy further up. And all of these come from a wealth of data that you get. Obviously, there's other, in terms of monitoring your progress as well, and perhaps creating benchmarks, which is all, no point in doing all of this unless you can actually measure it and tell people how you're getting on. So finally, just in conclusion, as we move towards 2030, I suppose I just wanted to reflect, it's really important to recognise the climate impact of food waste. I think it gets overlooked a little bit. I think it's really important also to remember the only way to reduce food waste at scale is to prevent it. And obviously, there's still some details to be ironed out in terms of targets coming through the Waste Framework Directive. But what we really need to be aware of here is that there are targets. Measuring is going to be a way of life. You also got, the CSR directive coming down the track. What we need, obviously, data and evidence will support our action as well. For us on the Charter, a key priority is reporting, and this would be really important for us, collating reports from members so that we can show that we are doing something and we're making an impact as well. But we can't shift the dial on our own, and we do need industry commitment. We need our partners in government and state agencies to support us as well. And really, if we can hope to address the challenge, it's only by embedding commitment to food waste prevention across national initiatives and programmes so that it's a default action. Just in terms of further information, if you'd like to find out, you can tune in to the foodwastecharter.ie website, where you'll find links to all the resources I mentioned today, and there'll also be information on signing up to the Charter as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Odile. And I'm just going to bring everyone's attention to the first of our polls this morning. So you might see it up there on your tab and you can answer and we'll discuss the replies. So the poll asks, please select the top 3 motivators for your business / organisation to measure and prevent food waste. Is the motivation number 1, cost saving, number 2, regulatory pressures, number 3, reputational advantage, number 4, ESG or CSR, and I think there's a 5 there, which I cannot see just on my screen. Oh, it's, number 4, shareholder or customer expectation. So fill that out, let your replies come in, and then we can put those replies to the panel here. So I'd like to introduce our first panel, and this is all about government stakeholders and their own organisations and how they're going to, I suppose, influence their people in the food sector, their partner businesses, their advisory services on food waste. So we have, if you'd like to come in, guys, we have Richard Donnelly from Board Ishgurmara, we have Alexa Twomey from Enterprise Ireland, and Ciara McDonagh in Teagasc. And we've also two speakers online today, and actually we're going to hear first of all from one of those online speakers, Martin Hofler from Board BIA. So Martin, you might begin in telling us what your organisation is doing to influence food and drink businesses. They're having a difficult time at the moment, many of them, from rising cost base, etc., to adopt better food waste practices.
Thank you to the EPA for inviting me to speak today at the Forum for Food Waste. Within Board BIA, through the Origin Green programme, we request all companies to set a waste target. But to start this presentation today, I will give an overview of why we see that food waste is an important area for Board BIA to focus on. We'll look at the commercial rationale, and then we'll just finish off on explaining what Board BIA is doing as part of the Origin Green programme. So in Board BIA, we recognise that food waste is an issue that affects all aspects of society in Ireland: producers, growers, retailers, hospitality and consumers. Everyone along the chain from farm to fork contributes to this, and wasted food is a missed opportunity to help those who experience food poverty. In addition, food waste represents a substantial drain on global natural resources, as the cultivation, processing and transportation of food consumes significant quantities of land, water, energy and fertiliser. Beyond the resources that are lost, there's also a significant contribution to climate change. Board BIA's 2021 Global Sustainability Insight Research found that food waste for food and drink companies, retailers and food service operators is becoming a top priority because it is a top consumer priority. Almost 9 in 10 buyers said it's important for businesses to tackle food waste loss, and this spikes for food service and retail operators. From the companies that engaged, we saw efforts for targets to reduce food waste in all retailers' sustainability plans. To deliver these food waste reductions, food service operators and retailers will need to work closely with their suppliers. Therefore, it's essential for the suppliers into these channels to be able to credibly demonstrate and communicate their food waste efforts, as well as to identify how they can leverage these food waste preventions within their own brands to stand out to consumers. For consumers, food waste ranks highly as an influence of grocery decisions. The graph here displays what are the attributes shoppers, consumers care most about in Ireland. On this graph, we can see how important food waste is for the Irish consumer, with it being one of the most influential sustainability attributes and associated closely with sustainability overall. Therefore, helping consumers in Ireland reduce their food waste is a great way for organisations to communicate a brand's care for sustainability. But also, it's integral for organisations to undertake efforts to reduce food waste in the supply chain. Now, considering the significant volumes of food waste generated and its commercial importance, Origin Green members are required within their Origin Green waste targets to identify if food waste occurs in their operations. And if so, will seek to integrate company-wide actions to increase food waste prevention across their operations. For the retail and food service Origin Green Charter, food waste is a mandatory target for all members. The establishment of Origin Green member companies' waste targets are only possible through the support they receive from the EPA and the commitment that is set out in the Food Waste Charter. To date, the EPA Food Waste Charter guidance for the bakery, prepared foods, seafood sectors is invaluable guidance to companies when setting their Origin Green food waste targets and annual initiatives. Within the guides, companies are provided with guidance on the key actions they should undertake to reduce food waste. In addition, on how to set targets, EPA's food waste protocol for measuring and reporting food waste by the food and drink manufacturing and hospitality sectors ensures Origin Green members have a consistent approach to measuring their food waste. This allows companies to track their performance over time. Now, to supplement EPA's guidance, in March 2023, Board BIA launched its Pathways for Food Waste Prevention guidance document to assist Origin Green member companies when developing a food waste target within their Origin Green sustainability plan. The guidance incorporates EPA's existing guidance, but provides clarity on food waste target setting using the SMART target setting principle, a core requirement of the Origin Green programme. To finish today, Ireland has an opportunity to be a leader in tackling food waste, and by companies signing up to the Food Waste Charter and committing to reduce food waste in line with the national 2030 food waste target. Through preventing food waste, becoming more efficient in using what we have, and rescuing surplus food that cannot be prevented, Ireland can reduce the environmental impacts associated with food waste. Through this, we can make Ireland one of the leading countries, and not just for food quality production, but for food efficiency. Thank you.
Very much, Martin, and we'll pick up with some of those points that you raised a little bit later on. We're going to hear now from Richard Donnelly from Bolloch. Obviously, you work with a lot of small companies, you work with larger companies as well and exporters. So give us an overview of your interactions with food waste and the Food Waste Charter.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, and thanks to the EPA for inviting us here today. BIM, Bolloch, we're the Seafood Development Agency, and we're going through a pivotal change at the moment with the investment in the industry. And we were delighted to sign up to the Food Waste Charter in June this year. One of the fundamental changes that we're seeing is that our processing capacity is going to increase significantly for seafood in Ireland. There's been an investment from the Brexit Adjustment Reserve in the value of 45 million gone out in the last 12 months to companies. What this means is that there's going to be a significant amount of byproduct generated in the seafood processing area. We in BIM delighted, as I said, with the Food Waste Charter, because it focused our internal team to actually say, what opportunities do we get from these food byproducts from seafood? And in Ireland, there's about 250,000 tonnes of seafood either landed or farmed in the country. And with a significant amount of this being processed in the country, it gives a really good opportunity to develop auxiliary businesses associated with their processing. Our internal group has tackled this both on a commercial point of view, looking at innovative ways to use these byproducts, and also looking at the wider aspect of how can we set up secondary businesses associated with this. So we've been working extensively with Teagasc. We have some fantastic projects going on with them, and also with the universities such as GMIT. And further afield, we've been engaging in Norway, in fact, with Nofima. So all this work is going on. And to give you an example of some of the type of successes that we've got, we've been working with Atlanta Seafoods in Wexford, and one of their byproducts, their seafood byproduct, is now being used into a significant pet manufacturing business, and it's called Harley and Marley. This is an upmarket brand for pet food, and what they do is develop treats that are wholly based on sustainable seafood. So that business would not exist if it wasn't maximising the use from the offcuts and from the materials that have been used in the processing factory. Another exciting one, and again, thanks to Teagasc in this, we're doing a lot of work on biostimulants. One of the things that we can actually use is mackerel, and mackerel blood is actually been found to generate real growth in products like basil, chives, and other horticultural areas. So this has been a really, exciting area, and we're looking further. We're running a innovation studio every year to look at new businesses and new startups, and these have been in areas for biostimulants that have been made from fish offcuts. We can use nutraceuticals, and as I said, the pet food industry as well. So there's an exciting future, an exciting road ahead, and we're just delighted to be part of it, and looking forward to the rest of the day here. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Lots of really interesting things there we'd like to pick up on later on. Alexa from Enterprise Ireland, if you want to go to the podium there, you might tell us why Enterprise Ireland signed up to the Food Waste Charter and how you're using the Charter and your interactions with new businesses.
Thanks so much. And again, I'd just like to echo Richard's comments there and thank the EPA for inviting us along here today to speak to everybody about food waste and about how our supports can help companies that we work with to really engage in the Food Waste Charter. The same as BIM and everybody else here today, Enterprise Ireland is delighted to be a part of the Food Waste Charter and to have signed up to that earlier on this year. So I have a few slides to bring everybody through today. And I suppose the first slide is to just mention where climate sits in Enterprise Ireland and where it sits in wider government policy. So for anybody who isn't already aware, climate is a central pillar of government policy. And in particular, it's a central pillar in the industrial policy of the Irish government. So the Climate Action Plan for 2023 and soon to be the Climate Action Plan for 2024 talks about how agencies like Enterprise Ireland, IDA, SCAI and others can all work to help to make sure that all of the supports that we offer to companies right across the country are aligned with emissions reductions and indeed with the wider environmental priorities that government has. The white paper on enterprise, and this is the government policy document that kind of Enterprise Ireland uses as its Bible in many ways, talks about the enterprise development agencies incorporating carbon abatement as an objective equal to and alongside employment and value add. But I suppose carbon abatement is one part of the challenge that we're all facing when it comes to sustainability. And I think that when we look at food waste, and hopefully in the next couple of slides, I'll be able to highlight the fact that there's also a huge amount of opportunities that lie for companies who are willing to meet that challenge and look at new ways of doing things and new ways of kind of taking advantage of those sustainable opportunities. And I think food waste is one of those. So if we look at Enterprise Ireland's strategic ambition, and for anybody who isn't already aware of who Enterprise Ireland is, we're the state agency responsible for working with Irish companies and food FDI companies to help them to scale and grow from Ireland. We support companies with innovation, we support companies to look internationally, we support entrepreneurs at the beginning of that journey, and we work with companies in a huge range of ways, one of which is sustainability. So in our strategy, Leading in a Changing World, which was published in 2022, we have 5 key pillars. And one of our key pillars and key strategic ambitions is that Irish enterprises will be leading globally on sustainability and achieving climate action targets. For Enterprise Ireland, and I suppose why we're so delighted to be part of the Food Waste Charter, addressing food waste is a key tenet in how we can help our food companies to lead globally on sustainability and contribute to delivering our climate action targets. A key performance indicator for us is around carbon emissions reductions, but again, I'd like to really reiterate that that is one of the focus areas for Enterprise Ireland. We want to work with companies on all aspects of their sustainability journey and indeed to focus in on those green economy opportunities. And I think food waste is a perfect area for companies to look at those opportunities. If we look at projects supported by Enterprise Ireland that we think are particularly relevant to the Food Waste Charter, really, it's all around circular economy and how can we help companies to take what might be today considered a waste stream or a byproduct and turn that into something that's going to help to deliver real commercial benefits for your business. So we're working with the Circular Bioeconomy Cluster in the Southwest. We're working with the Irish Bioeconomy Foundation based in Lachine. We're working with Circulaire, which is a joint initiative by the EPA, the Department of Environment and IMR, one of the IDA Enterprise Ireland research centres that we fund. We've got BioConnect and Shannon ABC. This is just an example of some of the collaborative opportunities that companies can engage with to see how can they engage in the circular economy. And I think for our food companies in particular, there's a huge opportunity here. If we look more specifically at how Enterprise Ireland can help food companies to either address the food waste issue at the beginning to make sure food waste isn't generated, or where there is food waste, and for many companies that's a reality of doing business, to look at new ways of dealing with that food waste, to maybe look at new opportunities for developing new products. Really, our supports that we have are highlighted here around 2 key groups. So there's one-to-one in-company supports. So this is about supporting companies with funding to maybe look at an R&D opportunity. Can you take a byproduct and turn that into something of value? We've seen many, many companies do this to great success, and I know that there'll be some companies talking on the next panel later on, so I'll let them tell their stories. They'll do it much better for me than I will. We have kind of our green support, so that's our climate action voucher, our Green Start, our Green Plus support. So these are all about training and capability development. And what they help companies to do is to look at their own business and say, how can I reduce food waste? How can I look at developing a circular economy plan? How can I engage in bioeconomy opportunities? And finally, there's our capital investment initiative. This is a grant support to help companies to invest in the technology and equipment that they might need that will really help them move into this new business opportunity area. There's also a lot of collaborative support. We see huge benefit, and I think everybody speaking today will kind of hopefully agree with me on this one. I know Teagasc are doing an awful lot of work in this space as well, around companies collaborating either with each other, with the research community, with companies overseas through the Horizon Europe initiatives. So we've got a big range of collaborative support. So we've got technology centres and gateways. So Meat Technology Ireland is one of those, and I know that we'll be hearing from them later. There's Horizon Europe opportunity. Europe is really focused on helping companies to take advantage of green opportunities, of circular economy opportunities through the Green Deal and other initiatives. We've got a Disruptive Technology Innovation Fund, Innovators Initiative, Innovation Vouchers, and I could go on. But I suppose really what I'd like to kind of get across today is that for any company in the food sector who has a waste stream today, please come and talk to us. Let's work together to see how can we either eliminate that waste stream, reduce the waste stream, or actually turn that waste stream into new commercial opportunities for your business. We've seen loads of examples of this. We've seen companies looking at offcuts of butter and turning them into a really saleable product that's commanding great value in overseas markets. We've seen companies turning bread into beer. We've seen all of these different initiatives. So the big appeal that I would like to put out to people today is come and talk to us and let us help you to address your food waste problem and to find new opportunities through it. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Alexa. Some really fascinating businesses obviously doing things there, and that innovation is a key part, and we will talk about that a little bit later. We're going to go now, I think she's in the southwest, to Aileen Deasy, who is online. And Aileen is from Fáilte, Ireland. Obviously, a big sector of food waste is hotels and restaurants in our hospitality sector. So Aileen is going to speak a bit about that now. Thank you and welcome Aileen.
Thanks very much, Suzanne. That's great. And we are delighted to be here today to talk about what Fáilte Ireland and how our National Irish Tourism Development Agency is supporting the EPA with the Food Waste Charter, for which we signed up for earlier this year. So thanks a million for the opportunity. I thought I'm just going to check, make sure my slide clicker is working. I just thought, first of all, just to put it into from an Irish tourism perspective, just to look at maybe some of the challenges facing our businesses. And like you mentioned, it's where the food waste is originating is anywhere producing food, kitchens, hotels, restaurants, and even in our activity sector, sometimes, they're serving food, and also our attractions. So sometimes, people have been to the National Gallery, you'll see a cafe there. Anywhere serving food is going to generate waste. So just from an Irish tourism perspective, the desire to reduce emissions is strong, and businesses are facing increasing pressures to do so. And we know that moving to a position of net zero carbon is a significant undertaking. And some of the challenges include, like we have many operational challenges, managing costs, staff shortages, trying to increase revenues and efficiencies in these businesses, a lack of the necessary knowledge and expertise to implement effective carbon reducing strategies. And knowing where to start is actually, we have found a big area in this sector. The sheer scale of the task of reducing emissions can be quite daunting. There's a lot of uncertainty, and it's quite a complex area, like who takes responsibility in the business, what actions should you take first, what are the costs, what are the benefits, and how do you really get traction? So to address some of these challenges then, just make sure my clicker is working. Give me a moment. Okay. So in response to some of these challenges, and of course a lot of them will involve food waste, in early 2023, we launched a series of climate action guides and a roadmap. And this is, these guides were to give tourism businesses the best place to start this journey with best practice. And, some of the areas that we highlighted here, the really big ones, energy, waste, water, a little bit of information about carbon offsetting, biodiversity, and these are all particular to our sector. So we have supported businesses all this year to date and continue to do so, building capability in their teams with training and mentoring and using these guides, to really demonstrate how best practice is done. So we've supported all staff from leadership, management to all operational staff to understand what's necessary to go on this journey. And of course, part of that is the food waste journey and why it's so important. So as well as this, at our conference last year, we launched a carbon calculator. The one we're recommending is the one from the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, and that is the Climate Toolkit for Business. So this is the calculator that we are recommending to businesses, because we know that measuring our carbon, and I know Odile mentioned data earlier and the importance of gathering data, measuring our carbon footprint is a really key step for us as a sector in responding to our government commitment to reduce our carbon emissions. So ourselves in Fáilte Ireland, we're taking very much a bottom-up approach, looking at our carbon footprint from a business level perspective, and then reviewing this cumulative impact of tourism businesses within the sector. We've also served up international benchmarks to the businesses who have completed the calculator, and part of this calculator involves putting in your food waste. So we can give an international benchmark. So you get a footprint, but a lot of businesses, they didn't really know what did that mean. Was it good or bad? So by comparing it internationally with 30 years of data, we can give a benchmark to a business so that they know how good or how bad they're doing, so they can really implement new targets and make the changes necessary. So again, having this information and the data really is key. So in particular to food waste then, I'm just going to try and move slide again. It's great technology. In particular with food waste, so we have worked throughout this whole journey, we have worked really closely with the EPA and the teams there, and also with our champions to build capability in teams to address the area of food waste and food waste reduction and sustainable menus. So we've developed this waste guide, and again, all of the tools associated with the EPA that the EPA built are inbuilt into this, and our trainers are fully up to speed with all of the EPA tools. It's built into the training modules, and we've also developed food waste reduction videos to really reach out to tourism businesses, to create awareness around what waste is actually costing, how to reduce it and manage it systematically within the businesses, within these kitchens. So just a quick word on one of our champions. They have a great example. So in Airfield Estate in Dublin, their baseline data revealed that 50.6% of their total waste generated from Airfield was brown or organic waste. So the business invested in an accelerated aerobic biodigester to manage this waste stream. The biodigester handles all of the brown bin waste and including compostables, converting them into compost within 24 hours, which then this can be used on the land or as a source of material for community gardens, or it can be sold commercially. So there was a saving there of 5,000 per annum, mainly because they're not having those bin lifts from their waste company. They saved 10 tons of carbon, and there was a 3-year payback. So, these measures really do have great impacts, and they do have a good return on investment as well. So we have this case study up on our website, as we do with all of our other champions that have signed up. And, it's a great way to highlight the importance of these initiatives. And our champions also spoke at our conference last year. So just to finish up with my last slide, I'm just going to move it on there. Okay. So we all know that Ireland has committed to cutting greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030 and achieving net zero emissions by 2050. So the challenge for tourism and the challenge that's being set for tourism, we haven't been pulled out as an industry on our own, but we are being asked to achieve a 45% reduction in emissions by 2030 in our commercial built environment. So again, this is a huge, lofty target for us, but driving climate action is a strategic priority for Fáilte Ireland, and we aim to help businesses to contribute to these targets, and we are committed to supporting them to reducing their carbon to be seen as a sustainable tourism destination. So partnering with EPA and on this food waste charter will enable businesses to really reach these targets. Collaboration is key, and working across our partner agencies will give us the bandwidth to meet these challenges. So we will be launching very ambitious plans in 2024, which really will make Ireland a leader in sustainable tourism development. So thanks a million, and that's it from me for now.
Thanks very much, Aileen. Just before we hear from our last speaker on this panel, I'd just like to draw your attention to the questions again. We have some coming in. Please, you know, if you have any thoughts pop into your head on listening to the speeches, on looking at the slides, please send us a few questions through, and we'll use them now once our last speaker has wrapped up in our panel discussion. And our last speaker, of course, is Ciara McDonagh from Teagasc. She's mainly going to be talking about food waste in food manufacturing and encourage more circular economy thinking from food businesses. So welcome, Ciara.
Thank you, and thanks to the EPA for the invite here this morning. I'm delighted to be joining in this panel session with our other state agencies who, along with Teagasc, I know are deeply committed to the Food Waste Charter. The Charter itself, that we didn't hesitate in signing last June, is closely aligned with our own organisational strategies, in particular with the Teagasc Climate Strategy that was launched last December. It identified circular food systems as a key area that will contribute to us meeting our national and European climate obligations. So reducing food loss and food waste was called out as a key and immediate action in that strategy, while others included eco-friendly packaging and alternative protein sources. Business as usual is no longer an option in terms of the way we produce, distribute and consume food. And Teagasc has a significant role to play in terms of delivering industry-relevant research, development and innovation in this space. Our food scientists and researchers have been particularly successful in securing national and international funding to address circularity within the food system. In collaboration with industry and academic partners across Europe, these research activities are exploring opportunities to prevent and reduce food waste. It's developing our national knowledge base and enabling us to help meet those commitments. Some of the projects are focused on things like more sustainable processing, others on optimising eco-friendly packaging to minimise food spoilage, valorising waste streams and byproducts for added value, as alluded to earlier by Richard and Alexa, in the food chain or otherwise, is another area of applied research that is ongoing. Our scientific knowledge base, along with the supporting infrastructure in our Dublin and Cork food centres, allows us to work with industry partners to develop and scale those opportunities that are coming out of our research programmes. The National Prepared Consumer Food Centre in Ashtown, Dublin, and Moorpark Technology Limited in Cork are key anchors in terms of supporting this work. We work with approximately 250 food client companies annually within the manufacturing and food processing sector. And we provide advice and support to many others. We're seeing an increasing demand for collaboration on pilot projects to trial solutions and to overcome challenges that these companies are facing in relation to food waste reduction and byproduct utilisation. We also recognise the vital role that Teagasc has in terms of building knowledge and developing capacity for food waste management and prevention within companies. We're currently reviewing our food industry technical training courses to integrate food loss and waste reduction into any of these programmes where relevant for the 2024 timetable. Our food consultants and technologists are focused on identifying opportunities within their client companies to reduce food loss and waste. They're committed to promoting the use of the EPA's Food Loss and Waste Management Protocol and supporting companies in measuring food waste and ultimately signing up to the Charter. Food waste prevention and reduction is also embedded within our product and process development activities within Teagasc. So we understand how we can address potential losses and how we can minimise them before we scale to manufacturing level within a client company. We're committed to sharing knowledge and to raising awareness through industry events where we can showcase live solutions or use platforms like the National Prepared Consumer Food Centre to demonstrate impact. Yesterday, I attended the annual Teagasc Food Innovation Gateways event, which was focused on building a sustainable food system. Scientists there presented research and technologies that were focused on unlocking the potential of food waste biomass. We have a challenging road ahead in terms of reducing food waste by 10% in the processing and manufacturing sector by the end of 2030. However, Teagasc are committed to supporting the sector in achieving this through science-based innovation and a sense of common purpose. We hope that we can inspire and encourage companies to take this further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ciara. Just before we go on, we're going to reflect on the Slido poll, which I launched earlier when we sat down. And the question was, of course, please select the top 3 motivators for your business or organisation to measure and prevent food waste. And the results have come in for that. And really, the top motivators, it looks to be ESG, CSR, and then cost saving number 2. So that's obviously a big feature, big motivation factor there. And reputational advantage. And something we might tie into what Aileen said, that, you know, marketing businesses is more sustainable, marketing them is more green. It's, you know, it has competitive advantages as well, not just in terms of you're saving money. And then the shareholder and customer expectation. And interestingly enough, regulatory pressures was last, but I suppose we don't have regulatory pressures at the moment, but these might be coming down the tracks. Odile, you might elaborate on that a little bit more. You mentioned that there could be binding EU targets on food waste coming in quite soon, or what did you say, 2030?
Yeah, the Commission have actually proposed targets. So they've proposed that 10% in the manufacturing sector and then 30% from hospitality, retail hospitality and households. And I suppose the response is that we all signed up to the Sustainable Development Goal in 2030, but they don't see action happening quickly enough. And that's why they're considering binding targets. They think it'll focus the mind of the member states rather than all the great initiatives that are happening to concentrate the effort and the minds a bit as well.
So it's more stick than carrot, we might see at that stage. We've another question we might that have come in from our participants online, Martin. It would be more in your line regarding Origin Green, and are all the partner companies in Origin Green signed up to the Food Waste Charter?
As Odile stated, I believe there's only 29 companies signed up to the Food Waste Charter at date. We are working with the EPA to promote the Food Waste Charter. When we launched our new food waste guidance earlier this year, a strong recommendation following from that was to sign up to the Food Waste Charter. And when we are developing the waste targets with companies, we have those one-to-one conversations and explaining what the benefits are for companies in signing up to the Food Waste Charter and what available supports the EPA can provide. We are currently working with EPA across a number of projects, most related to the food waste protocol. So we're recruiting Origin Green members to utilise those food waste protocol tools, so then we have a consistent benchmark for the industry.
Aileen, in the tourism sector, I know the hotels have had a good year and so on and so forth, but I was just looking at figures from the Restaurant Association of Ireland this week, you know, charting the rise in restaurants closing. There's been huge financial pressures, as we know, from rising food prices, inputs, you know, running gas in kitchens, refrigeration. You know, I've covered it quite a bit as a journalist, a lot of food businesses closing. When you're engaging with them on food waste, is it something that they even have, I suppose, the time or wherewithal or mental energy to engage with, considering the difficult trading environment that's out there at the moment in food service and in hospitality?
Yeah, like, it is definitely a challenge, the rising food costs, and a bit like the energy crisis last year, when costs start to go up, then, the focus really becomes a lot sharper on where businesses can save. So our focus, and when we go into businesses, we kind of take an all-round approach. So we look at, you can't just tackle food waste on its own, because you're going to have basically a whole team of people in the kitchen. You're going to have people using equipment that are basically using energy. We have worked to highlight as much as possible using sustainable menus, so sourcing locally. And while that can have a higher cost, sometimes it definitely cuts down on the amount of waste that can be generated. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we definitely take an all-round approach to everything. So it wouldn't just be food alone, because we need to reduce the costs across the board. And training staff on the ground, you would be amazed how much you can save by just getting in and making sure everybody in that team is on board. So it's from the chef right down, and from the top down, from the owner of the business right down. So, the focus is cut out the waste. So don't generate it, don't over purchase, don't, have stuff sitting in your fridge. Plan your menus very carefully, and, cut down on waste before you ever generate the waste. And then by having more sustainable menus, you will actually have a more sustainable approach to the whole operation within your restaurant or your hotel. But certainly we have a lot of challenges in there, and you have a lot of staff turnover as well, which can be an issue. But once you get these practices embedded from the chef down, we find it certainly has the impact we're looking for.
Ciara, you're dealing with different types of food businesses to Aileen. They are manufacturers, or they're coming, I suppose, from the farming or production end, but largely manufacturers, you were saying. What's their attitude to changing their practices on this? I mean, we all want to change our practices. We all buy stuff, we all end up throwing it in the bin, to varying different degrees, and we don't want to waste food. But how willing are they, I suppose, to fit it into their programme in a measuring way, in a data way, which requires a little more buy-in, doesn't it?
I think a lot of the larger companies are doing it already on an ongoing basis. I think we need to focus on the SMEs and to support them. I think the EPA protocol is something we need to embed within companies and ensure that they understand how to measure, but that they also see the value in it. I think there's a lot of innovative companies out there that are already identifying waste streams within their businesses or byproducts. And from a commercial perspective and an environmental perspective, they're already starting to take steps. But I do think, today, hearing from Alexa and the funding that's available there, how the state agencies are working together on a technical level to support businesses in doing this, I think that's critical. We need to keep communicating that, and we need to bring the companies on board and supporting them in this journey.
Alexa, what sort of supports are there? I know you detailed them in their slide, but are you kind of encouraging companies to come together, and is there a monetary advantage for them to do that?
So I suppose and I think there's some of the points that have been made this morning that would really resonate with me, and now you think of all the things I should have said on my slides earlier on. But I think so when we're looking at companies, and we're looking at companies across all sectors, so I suppose today we're very focused on the food sector, because they're the companies that tend to generate food waste. But we're looking at how can we help you to reduce your carbon footprint. And as Aileen mentioned earlier on, the department's carbon calculator, it looks at things like electricity and gas, and those obvious things. But food waste is a part of that. And you are asked how much food waste you're generating. So we're looking at working with businesses kind of from all different parts of the food and drink sector, and saying, how can we help you reduce your carbon footprint in all of the different ways you generate carbon. So there are those direct in-company supports, so we can get a consultant to come in and work with your company to look at your individual business to say, okay, what's a 3-year plan going to look like for you? A lot of our food and drink companies have already started this. They're all parts of our Origin Green, so they're working with Martin and the team there. But maybe kind of where we can come in is to help somebody come in and look at very targeted, specific ways of accelerating those plans. And something like food waste is a clear part of that. When it comes to collaborating, we do have, there's an extra incentive where companies work together. We can usually support at a higher level. So, whether it's working with researchers in Teagasc or working, with some of the technology centres that we fund to say, how can you, address the problem at the beginning or identify these new streams? There is, quite significant funding in some cases available to companies to use that. What I'd also say, though, and it was the reason why I mentioned companies in other sectors, we're working with companies in software, in tech, who are developing technologies that can help you to reduce your food waste.
Right.
So, I would encourage companies to kind of look as broadly as they can. There's lots of kind of different offers from Irish companies, but of course there's overseas companies as well, I'm sure, developing interesting things. But, ones that many people would be familiar with are like Food Cloud, Nutritics, who help companies to look at their own food waste and look at ways of managing that a little bit better. So there's a lot of opportunities there, and we really would just encourage people to come and talk to us, and we will help you in whatever way we can. But that training and capability piece that I know Word B and Teagasc and BIM and Fáilte Ireland, we're all doing the same, and obviously the EPA have a huge offering in this space too. That's where it all starts. So we have a lot of workshops and programs that we're offering free of charge to companies to come and say, okay, how do you begin to look at your environmental roadmap and your sustainability journey? And just come talk to us, and we'll get there together, we hope.
Okay, that's a good message to get out. A lot of free resources then as well. Richard, innovation is a big thing in seafood at the moment, and I know that exports are absolutely booming. Is telling them to maybe concentrate on their food waste and look at developing other products from it, is it something that they have an ear towards, or is it something that it's quite difficult for them to focus on during the normal day-to-day production in a factory or in a fish plant or on boats even?
No, it's fundamental to the business, and I suppose in BIM we're very, very commercially driven, working with the companies. And when you go to the effort of either catching a fish or farming a fish, it's maximising the yield from that is crucial. And that's really what we're trying to do. And the innovation fund that was put in place, the Brexit Adjustment Reserve of 45 million, has transformed the processing sector. So we're now maximising the yield from the product we get, and now we're putting in secondary steps to say, what can we do with the byproducts coming from that? It's put Ireland really at the forefront. We're probably one of the most modern seafood processing countries in Europe as a result of this investment. We have the most modern technology. We've looked at best practice around the world, brought it back home to Ireland. And it's really put our processing sector at the forefront of technology and innovation. So we're delighted with that. I suppose the challenge is how do we develop these auxiliary businesses that come from that? And as Alexa alluded to there, we're looking at other industries, and we run a 2-week innovation studio where we actually invite people from outside, maybe the aquaculture or the seafood business, to actually come and try and solve problems for us. And out of that, we've generated over 200 jobs from that programme. We've had 54 companies to go through it. So it really is trying to match the brains that we have in other industries and bring that into the seafood sector to maximise the return on the product that we have.
Okay. Odile, if companies are watching this and they're not signed up to the Charter, because obviously there's huge scope there, what do they get out of signing up? Is it just, I suppose, a pledge to be better on food waste, but also the tips, the scientific tools? Give us a potted, I suppose, offer for signing up.
Yeah, I suppose that it is that you're making a public commitment, which is something that's quite important. It's also that you're joining others like you that think this is important and making that collaborative effort, which is what we're talking about here, this working together piece that, it might put you in touch with someone who has a solution for you, or, and I definitely see that dialogue, and working groups are key to this, and bringing that in to help identify. There might be a systematic issue in your sector that you know about your business, but, bring 3 more in and they suddenly go, oh my God, we have this issue too. And is it something that could be solved as well? So I think you can't undervalue the collaboration piece, but obviously it also brings you that systematic approach to measuring, which maybe a lot of businesses grapple with getting started because they're busy doing their business thing. And the idea is that, you know, it's simple, it's designed for Irish businesses, but it's compatible with international methodologies. So you probably have your ESG and your CSR commitments coming down the track for you, but this will give you one piece of that suddenly I've got the data point for this because I've done it. And it'll also bring that target-based action, because when you go into businesses, a lot of them, first of all, they don't really know exactly the measurable actions that they've done. You know, it might be, we had an open day and we told all our staff about food waste, but that's obviously not, you're trying to measure we did this action and we reduced our food waste by this amount, and that's what we're talking about, that measurement piece.
Martin, in terms of Board BIA, when you do programmes like FoodWorks with Enterprise Ireland, and you're looking to mentor and select businesses to be mentored, to get, you know, quite a bit of support to develop on their journey to eventually be exporting, are you looking for commitments from them at the beginning about their food waste practices, that they have a plan? Is it something that's now a part of, you know, not just a tick box, but something that has to be visible, a commitment from them before they enter these sort of programmes now?
Yeah, so the Origin Green team is closely engaged with the FoodWorks programme. In fact, I think the new cohort just started last week.
Yeah.
And we met with them and discussed what is the commercial rationale around sustainability at a broader point, and focus on what key areas are important to them. You see many of the new FoodWork companies coming on board. They're seeing the opportunity to valorize food waste. They're seeing how that raw material can be used to then develop a branded product. In terms of directly supporting them on food waste, we make them aware of what food waste resources are available through the Origin Green Plan development process. We have a mentor who will work one-to-one with them to identify what different targets would be appropriate for their companies. And food waste could be one of those targets if they're in a sector or processing field that we believe has high food waste implications.
Okay, very good. From the Enterprise Ireland point of view, you're obviously dealing with it as well in terms of FoodWorks.
Absolutely, and look, I mean, FoodWorks is a fantastic programme because it does kind of bring all three of us. Teagasc are part of FoodWorks as well. But what we would look at, so companies who maybe graduate from FoodWorks and you know, kind of they come in and they join our high potential startup cohort. So that's our kind of funding program really, but it's funding and capability for startup companies. For all startup companies where we're making an equity investment, we ask them about their sustainability at the beginning, because I suppose if you talked to us maybe 5 or 10 years ago, we would have talked about companies being born lean. You hear the phrase born digital. You know, now we're talking about companies being born green. You know, I think that there are so many reasons why, you know, there's the do the right thing part that we all want to be responsible businesses and everybody wants to do that. But just from a commercial point of view, there's huge, you know, you can count it in euros and cents benefits from being born green.
Yeah,
it's the right
so
thing
having
to
those
do.
Sustainability kind of goals from the outset.
Exactly.
Not having to take them on board when you're already in train.
Build it into your business strategy from day one. So we would be engaging with all of our high potential startups and you know, kind of all of our companies to say, how are you building sustainability into your business plan from the get-go? And obviously for a food company, food waste is going to be a big part of that. So, you know, kind of, I think that those commercial benefits, because yes, everybody wants to do the right thing, but for a startup company where, you know, every cent counts and every piece of margin counts, I think kind of starting green, you know, is really, really going to be useful and helpful to you as you try to build a customer base and build a team.
It's kind of essential. Okay, we're going to wrap on this session, and thank you everybody for taking part. We had Martin and Aileen online today, and Richard, obviously Alexa, Ciara in studio, and of course Odile from EPA. We're going to take a short break now. We'll be back at 11 o'clock sharp with our second session, which are actually food companies that are already signed up to the Charter. We'll hear from Tesco, we'll hear from O'Brien. So the day-to-day nuts and bolts about how they're addressing these issues. So see you then.